Spiritual nugget number 18. Life is half and half. This is the Yin and Yang episode. Life is half good and half bad, half black and half white, half roses and half seaweed. Everything has two sides to it. If life were a coin, we would be living 50% of the time on the head side and 50% of the time on the tail side. Going along in life, a lot of the time we have the idea that things should always be going well. And if things aren't going well, then something has clearly gone wrong. And I'm here to say today, if something has gone wrong, it's a sign that everything is going right. What you are experiencing is the great balance of the universe. I've realized in my life that I actually have to go through some suffering to enjoy the good times. And whenever I'm going through a difficult time, most of the time I can come back and say, oh, well, after this happens, I'm going to feel much better. A good example of that is that I hate hiking. And when I'm going to go on a hike with my friend, when we're leaving, I'm really not that enthusiastic. But I think, man, when I get home from this hike, I'm going to be really happy to be home. And invariably, I always am. The greater degree our suffering, the greater opportunity we have for joy. You may have seen this with someone you know, or even in your own life. I have a friend who was abused very badly as a child, who would eat dirt in the backyard because his mom didn't feed him. And he is so ready to live life today. He is so willing to take chances. He is so willing to put himself out there. And he said the reason is because he's already been to hell and back, and really nothing could ever be worse than that. And so for some of us who have already been to hell and back at one time in our life, we have seen the bad that life can offer, and really that we just ended up okay, and that anything that happens, we can always come back from it. There is another part of this yin and yang of life. We talked about sort of the good and the bad, and there's also the part that is the content and the non-content. And this idea comes from the writings of Eckhart Tolle. And he says essentially that everything in the world could not exist if there were not space for it. So if you were to think of all the items around you right now, if everything was matter, nothing would be of form. Everything would just be a huge block. Even in the empty spaces, there are particles of gas and pollutants and whatnot, but between those molecules and atoms, there is empty space. And there's even empty space in the objects that you would think of as solid. And I know this sounds like a physics class right now, but what we're getting at is how often do we spend in our life in the content? I would say we spend 99.9999% of our time concerned with the content of life. Objects and people and sounds and heat, protein shakes. How often do we spend in the non-content? How often do we spend with the space? One of my favorite ideas from Eckhart Tolle is basically to create a space in anything that you're doing. If you are frustrated on a work project, or if you have a relationship that is strained, if you can think in your mind of just creating a space, or look for that space, ask yourself, is there a space here? When you create space, you are bringing yourself back into alignment with the universe. Today, whatever your experience of your life is, whatever is going well or going badly in your mind, remember that it is all a part of a balance. In fact, you are exactly where you're supposed to be today. Take some time, create some space, and just enjoy whatever is there.